What's going on, everybody? C4 here, and welcome back to the 32 Teams 7-round mock draft series, where today we're taking a look at the team that holds the 28th pick in the first round, and that is the Los Angeles Chargers, a team that, once again, last year made the playoffs, had a very strong roster that for whatever reason just couldn't get it done. And I'm telling you right now, as someone that's just neutral on the Chargers, I don't care if they do bad or good, there's something going on there. Like, I just feel like they're missing something every year. Obviously there's been some injuries in the years past that have been fairly costly, but it seems like every year you just never really expect them to win the big one, and I kind of think there's a certain common denominator there as to why they're not doing it. We're gonna address said position fairly heavily here in the earlier rounds in this draft, but I'm gonna try my best because this Chargers team is too damn talented to keep going like at best one and done in the playoffs. So let's see if we can help them out. Last year they did a really good job in the draft. I loved their draft last year. Derwin James was a nice pick. Chenowusu turned out to be pretty good. I wasn't super high on him, but he turned out to be a big-time playmaker. Kaiser White from West Virginia, I love that pick. Justin Jones, NC State, he was a really nice selection. So let's see if we can build upon that. So in the first round at pick 28, I am selecting Greg Little, offensive tackle from Ole Miss. Offensive tackle for me is the weakest spot on this team. Right now you have Sam Tevi and Russell Okung as their starting tackles. Those guys there. Kuhn, you know, he's a little bit of a journeyman. He was really good in his prime with Denver. He's still, you know, a capable tackle, but is he a great tackle? No. Does he have much upside left? No. So starting with someone like Greg Little, improving, in my opinion, the weakest position on the team. I think Greg Little has the highest ceiling in any of the tackles. Did kind of have an average to below average combine, but from that I'm getting a little bit of flashbacks to Orlando Brown last year. Orlando Brown had one of the worst combines ever last year after being regarded as probably a top 15 pick out of Oklahoma. Slipped into the third round to the Baltimore Ravens. They drafted him. His tape didn't change any. His production and the body of work that he did at college didn't change whatsoever. And then also, surprise, surprise, he's now looking like the long-term starter at right tackle for the foreseeable future for the Baltimore Ravens. So I think maybe that's going to get teams not to just blow up a prospect's grade because of it, an below average offseason or combine. He's a prototypical offensive tackle, Greg Little is, and I think he could challenge right away for the starting right tackle gig, even though he does project long-term to be that starting left tackle. So, I mean, even worst case scenario, you could have him sit behind Russell Okung for a little bit of time, and then have him eventually supersede him and become the long-term starting left tackle. But they need to improve the tackle spots on this team, and I think Greg Little still at pick 28. That's a slip. That is a slip for Greg Little. I thought Greg Little coming into this year was going to be a lock to be a top 10 pick. Now he's going, later stages of the first round. I still think that is a just grade and good value for Greg Little. Going into the second round at pick 60, I am selecting David Edwards, offensive tackle from Wisconsin. We are doubling up at the offensive tackle spot. David Edwards is a tremendous run blocker right now, as is for what, I wouldn't say little, but for what, small amount of offensive line tape that I have watched that I remember. He kind of reminds me a lot of Ryan Ramczyk, who is now a very solid starting tackle for the New Orleans Saints. But, didn't he make the Pro Bowl or something like that? Something crazy like that. A lot of similarities between him and David Edwards, at least when it comes to being a run blocker. I think you get two future starters here if you're the Chargers at offensive tackle. They need to develop both these guys a little bit in Greg Little, getting him to be a little bit more technical, and with David Edwards, help him work on his pass protection a little bit. But I would not be surprised whatsoever if they did this, if this is how they decide to approach the draft, that come week 6 or week 7, your offensive line will look like Greg Little at left tackle, Dan Feeney at left guard, Pouncey at center, Forrest Lamp at right guard, and then at right tackle, you have David Edwards. I mean, you do have Forrest Lamp, the second round pick in 2017. He can play tackle, but I think ultimately, he'll be a long-term starter in the interior, and you get that flexibility that he can swing at the tackle if there wasn't ever an injury or something like that. But that is a very promising and youthful, outside of Pouncey, offensive line going forward for the Chargers. And ultimately, that answers the question. That one thing, I just think they have an average offensive line. That is the spot that they're really lacking. They have elite wide receivers. You have an elite quarterback. You have an elite tight end. Your running game is very good. Your defensive line is very good. Your linebacking core maybe lacked leadership, but had some nice playmakers. You go out and get Thomas Davis. You've one of the most depthful, is that a word? Depthful? We'll go with it. Secondaries in the league. But the offensive line, you got to stop going with budget guys. You got to stop going with budget guys. You got to properly invest into that offensive line. I'm surprised Anthony Lynn hasn't been pounding the table to invest more in the offensive line. He's like a running back coach by trade. He should know the value in having good blockers up there. So getting Greg Little, getting David Edwards on at pick 28 and pick 60, I think would be a home run here for the Chargers. Going into the third round at pick 91, I'm selecting Tyree Jackson, quarterback from Buffalo. Obviously going to be the potential Phillip Rivers successor. He might have the highest ceiling out of any quarterback in this class, and I have talked about him in my quarterback rankings video. If there's one quarterback I had to select in this year's draft, personally, it wouldn't be a Drew Lock, Kyler Murray, Dwayne Haskins. That's going to cost you a first-round pick. I want Tyree Jackson in the third round. I think that is going to be the best value when you get in Tyree Jackson. You get a 6'7", 245-pound athletic cannon arm quarterback. That's not just another Cardale Jones. He's much better than Cardale Jones. But you also get the luxury of him being able to sit behind Phillip Rivers for, say, 2 years, probably. Yeah, 2 years from now. You also have Tyrod Taylor, another guy that he'll be able to pick his brain and learn a thing or two, and probably Tyrod has a little bit more similarities to his game than Tyree Jackson. Not saying that Tyree Jackson is fitting that stereotypical mold that he's a mobile quarterback, but he can move a little bit, and he might be able to learn a thing or two from two very nice veteran quarterbacks that are already on that roster, and he can be groomed to be the eventual successor to Phillip Rivers, like I said, in 2 years, 3 years, somewhere in that territory. But it's about time. It's about time, and I feel like in the third round this year, Tyree Jackson sitting there, that is the investment that needs to be made to groom and prepare for life beyond Phillip Rivers. Going into the fourth round at pick 130, I'm selecting Savion Smith, cornerback from Alabama. Now, not your typical Alabama corner. He is an average athlete, didn't test particularly well at his pro day, but the flashes were there on tape that this guy is a very capable corner with a lot of upside when it comes to developing in the National Football League. There's lots of time to develop here right now because there's so much depth ahead of him. In the Chargers secondary, you have Casey Hayward, Desmond King, Trevor Williams, Michael Davis. Those guys there, all are proven players right now that you're not going to be rushed to start. But when you really look at the profile of Savion Smith, he's an aggressive, strong tackler. He is a Gus Bradley cornerback. These are the type of corners that pretty much found their way to Seattle when Gus Bradley was there as the DC, and these are corners that he has had proven success with throughout his career. So I think, obviously, coming 3 interceptions with Alabama last year too, coming from a big school. He's going to be well coached. I think he was at Ohio State too before he went to Alabama. So again, 2 A+ programs for defensive players in the National Football League. You also get a little bit of a corner safety, maybe a little bit of a hybrid there from Savion Smith. He can wear a lot of hats in the defensive secondary. So you're getting a versatile Gus Bradley prototype corner here in the fourth round. Moving to the fifth round at pick 166. I'm selecting Cody Barton, linebacker from Utah, a very athletic linebacker who showed up at the combine with a 4.6 440, 30 on the bench press, a 4.03 shuttle. He had a productive year at Utah as well, 117 tackles, 11.5 tackles for loss, and 4 sacks. He's going to obviously come in as a fifth-round pick and bring some special teams ability, but I think he's going to be the top inside linebacker depth behind the often hurt Denzel Perryman. I like Denzel Perryman. I loved him coming out of the U, but the second-round pick in 2015 has struggled to stay healthy, struggled to stay on the field throughout his career with the LA Chargers. There were some concerns that he wasn't even going to get his contract picked up this year, but they re-signed him. But looking out behind him, they have Nick Zunbar as the potential backup, the top backup interior. I don't know about that. Whereas you look at someone like Cody Barton, a lot more athletic, fits the mold that they have there on the defense. They obviously got Kaiser White, who is a safety hybrid, athletic. Jatavis Brown, who's pretty much built like a safety, playing in linebacker. So I think a guy like Cody Barton will bring a lot more needed athletic depth behind Denzel Perryman. I think it's not too much of an ask to say, hey, you look at the one guy that looks like he's made of glass. Unfortunately, on your defense and Perryman probably are going to want some depth behind him that has some upside just in case yet again another season is lost due to injury. You might have to look at cutting ties, and at least you have someone on the roster that could supersede said player, and I think that could potentially be Cody Barton. But best case scenario, just a healthy rotation, special teams ace, and a athletic player to have on the defense. Moving into the sixth round at pick 200, I'm selecting KADEN Smith, tight end from Stanford. He's going to be coming in with a solid base. There's an unknown ceiling right now with KADEN Smith. Oh, blowing my phone up. But, he has a decent floor. He's an all right floor. They could use another tight end on the roster right now. They have Hunter Henry. Beyond that, there's not a lot. You got Virgil Green, former Denver Bronco. He is what he is, and he's a veteran, getting up there in age, getting up there as, in terms of regression, kind of expensive at this point. So someone like Kaden Smith coming from Stanford, I mean, Stanford tight ends are almost always pro ready, so which means they have a fairly safe floor, modest ceiling. Which with Kaden Smith, he's not a great athlete. He's not like, an Austin Hooper or Zach Ertz or a what was that guy who used to play for the Colts and the Coby Fleener. He's not really in that mold, but he still has the Stanford traits. He can catch across the middle. He had some decent production, more production than say, like a Dawson Knox from Ole Miss that's going to go in the 4th round. So I just think he's a guy that's his ceiling is going to be a tight end too, and the Chargers need a tight end too. They're never going to need someone that can take over for Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry, as long as he's healthy, is a top 10 tight end in this league, but you need that secondary option. I think in the 6th round, a guy like Kaden Smith could be seen as a really good value pickup to emerge as that second tight end behind Hunter Henry. And then finish off the draft in the 7th round at pick 242. I'm selecting Mitch Wishnowsky, punter from Utah, best punter in the class. No punter currently on their roster. Thank you guys right now, if you're a Charger fan, listen to this, for giving Donnie Jones another year, because obviously Donnie Jones won the Super Bowl with the Eagles. Love him, Donnie Bag of Bones Jones. But you need a new punter, and Mitch Wishnowsky was, he had one of the better combines the punters ever had. I think he ran the fastest 40-yard dash time for a punter at the combine. He was the 2016 Ray Guy winner, which is like the best punter. He's a 3-time Pac-12 selection at punter. He comes with as good of a background as any punter that has come in the last 5 years. So I think, you might not be getting a Michael Dixon, who obviously took the world by storm, the special teams world by storm anyways, last year with the Seattle Seahawks. But you're getting a guy that is a really good punter, will be able to start right away and help a really nice special teams unit. I mean, special teams was the Achilles heel for the Chargers forever. And then they got Michael Bagley from the Hurricanes last year, and they seem to solve their kicking woes. So I think a guy like Mitch Wishnowsky is going to help them and solidify their special teams unit that already is really, really good. And you always throw in, Desmond King's a really good punt returner. Really would solidify that unit as maybe one of the best special teams units in the AFC. So there you go, guys. That is the 7-round mock draft here for the Chargers. Charger fans in particular, let me know what you think about this mock draft in the comments section below. I know we went tackle heavy, but I think that has been the reason why they keep stalling here a little bit, is that when push comes to shove, Phillip Rivers has to panic, and he makes a dumb throw because his offensive line wasn't holding up. So let's get that O-line to hold up here, and then also maybe get his potential successor in Tyree Jackson in the 3rd round. But as always, guys, if it's your first time stopping by, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button, smash the like button if you enjoyed, and until next time, it's C4 saying peace out.